Sonic.
Hey everyone, just taking a quick 15 seconds to let you know that my new book, The Fitness Mindset, Eat for Energy, Train for Attention, Manage Your Mindset and Reap the Results, which hit the bestseller list within 24 hours of its release, is now available to buy on Amazon. So if you're looking for everything you need to get into incredible shape and the mindset to keep it forever, be sure to check it out. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Welcome to Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset with your host Brian Keane.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast. We talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset to help you with your goals. Today's episode is going to be a Q&A, and I've pulled my questions from my Snapchat BrianK019 and my Instagram Brian Keane Fitness. So if you're not following me on those platforms, they're definitely two to go check out, especially if you want to send any questions to the podcast. All of the questions come in from there. I'm spending an ungodly amount of time on Instagram at the minute and trying to get back to people in the DMs, particularly with the book at the bestseller list. A lot of people sending feedback through there and through the Amazon reviews. So massive thank you to everyone who's picked up my best-selling book as well. So first question comes in from Robert O'Brien on Snapchat. How can I balance work, social life and the gym? Okay, so this is a question that comes up quite regularly, and to give you a little bit of background, a bit more context on my own background, for those of you who've only been following the podcast recently, I worked as a primary school teacher for 4 years. That was my job before I went into the fitness industry, before I became a personal trainer, before I moved my business online, before I was doing podcasts or books or anything like that. I worked as a primary school teacher, which has effectively lent itself very well to that 9 to 5 lifestyle. I worked Monday to Friday. I worked 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, 8 to 5 in some cases, and then had my weekends off. And that was the time in my life when I really got to grasp with trying to balance work, social life and the gym. And the truth is, the most important thing to figure out is what are your end goals, and then reverse engineer them backwards, and what's your lifestyle and schedule, and then reverse engineer that backwards. So to give that and flesh that out a small bit, the truth is, when you know what your end goals is, it makes it a lot easier. So if you're looking to build muscle or lose body fat or tone up or drop a few dress sizes or just feel more confident or even play better in your sport where you're doing a lot more strength and conditioning and hypertrophy work, whatever your end goal is, when you know what that target is, you can work backwards from it. The truth is, balancing it into your lifestyle then is just going to be coming down to being prioritizing the most important things and then fitting them into your lifestyle. Training, nutrition, fitness in general should always supplement your lifestyle. It should make your life better and not take away from the things that are most important for you. So it's really important that you reverse engineer your training and your nutrition around how your life is set up, how your schedule is set up. If, for example, you're a stay-at-home mom and you've got 3 young kids, realistically, you're probably not going to be able to get an hour in the evening to go to the gym. So 20-minute HIIT workouts first thing in the morning before breakfast and before the kids wake up is what's going to work really well for you training. The same as somebody that works in an office 9 to 5 and you're tired at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're setting up a nutrition and a supplement plan that gives you a little bit of a kick at 5 p.m. or 5:30 so that you can go to the gym, get your workout, de-stress, and you feel so much better. So again, it's all about reverse engineering what your life looks like and then whatever fits best into that schedule. What I would advise you do in terms of balancing work, social life, and the gym is very, very similar to what I did, and it took me a while to perfect this, probably over the space of about 18 months, 2 years. But one was finding what works best for my schedule in terms of when could I train. I knew myself that I was always able to train on a Monday, a Tuesday. We used to have staff meetings on a Wednesday, so training was out on those days. I used to be able to train on Thursday. I used to go out for drinks on Friday. I used to go to the gym first thing in the morning Saturday, and then I used to go out Saturday night. What kept me in shape, and the best piece of advice I can offer anybody who is in a similar position, is make sure that you're keeping your nutrition tight and basing that around your goals and basing that around your social life so that you're not getting out of shape where you end up binging all of Sunday because you're hungover, then you reach for sugary and stimulated foods on Monday because you're tired, and then you're not back on your normal nutritional plan until Wednesday or Thursday, and then the cycle repeats itself. One of the things that works very, very well with people that come through my programs, particularly people in my Top 50 program where my coach, me and Emma guide people and we're working with you every week through it, is largely going to be down to reversing out whatever it is you're trying to achieve and then fitting in your social life around it. So for example, if you know you go out for drinks most Friday nights and you know you're going to go out in a heavy drinking session on a Saturday night, you know that you're going to wake up Sunday morning and be craving junk food. So what I would advise you do then is save your free meal or your cheat meal or whatever label you want to put on it. I'm not a big fan of the word cheat meal because of the negative connotation it puts on food. But I would save your free meals for that Sunday when you know you're going to be hungover. I would keep your nutrition super tight on the other days. I'd probably drop back your carbohydrates on the Saturday because you're going to be loading up with alcohol that night. I would keep your fats high so you don't get too drunk too quickly. Keep your protein high. I would do your hardest training session on that Saturday. And then I would do a rest day on Sunday. And I'd have a bit more of a free day with your food where you're keeping it semi-clean, 80-20, where you're having your free meals because you know you're not going to be feeling your best. And then first thing Monday, you're back on your normal nutritional plan again. What happens with some people, and again, I've been a victim of this, and the only reason I'm able to recognize it and spot it is because I was this person, is we go out on Saturday night, we feel hungover on Sunday, and then the whole weekend gets thrown off, and then we can't start back fresh on Monday because we feel horrible, and then it rolls into Tuesday, you reach for more biscuits, you reach for more sugary foods, and you just don't feel as good. And then before you know it, you're not back feeling yourself until Wednesday, and the whole cycle repeats itself again on Friday. So hacking that is key. Falling off for one day and then going off for another 3 or 4 days is like driving, getting a flat tire, and then slashing the other 3 tires just because you've got one flat tire. One bad day or one day you're hungover a week shouldn't set off your whole week and set you back in terms of your food, your training, your supplements. So my advice would be in terms of balancing work, social life, and the gym is make it fit into your lifestyle. Reverse engineer back however you live. If you've got small kids at home, if you work a normal 9 to 5, if you're struggling with your energy levels, make sure you're eating good, clean, healthy, whole foods, your complex carbohydrates, your complete protein sources, your healthy fats, so you're keeping your energy levels high. Normally, trying to balance that work, social life, and the gym can come down to being energy. Some people will miss, and I've been the first to catch this anytime I ever say I don't have time, because the truth is we all have time, we just don't prioritize it. I never anymore, I don't ever say I don't have time for something. I say it's not a priority, because that single reframe can catch any time you're making an excuse for yourself. And I've done it countless times, but now I catch that. But there's a very, very confusing model where people confuse time and energy, where they say, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. That's not necessarily true. You have the time because we all have the same 24 hours, but you may not have the energy. You may be tired from work. You may be tired from your kids. You may be tired because your nutrition isn't good. And that's the reason you can't train. It's not because you don't have time. It's because you don't have the energy or you haven't made it a priority. So what I would advise is, if training is a priority, find a way to fit it into your schedule. You don't have to spend 2 hours at the gym. 20-minute HIIT workout at home will work tremendously well if fat loss is your goal, provided you're trying to provided you have your nutrition on point alongside that. Going into the gym for 30-40 minutes and doing a hypertrophy workout where you're tearing down fibers and then making sure you're getting enough amino acids and protein after it is going to be able to stimulate enough fiber tears to build muscle. So you don't have to spend 2 hours doing it. However, if you're tired and you don't have the energy, it's very easy to make the excuse that, oh, I don't have time or I'm too tired to do it. So that comes down to making sure that you set it as a priority and then just reverse engineering it back, whatever your lifestyle is, whatever your schedule is, and then making your training fit and nutrition fit into your work, fit into your social life, and fit into your life in general. Okay, next question comes in from HoranSteve7 on Instagram. What do you occupy your mind with when you're running on the treadmill? Okay, so this has been coming in a lot recently. For any of you following my Snapchat, I put all my workouts up on Snapchat, and I'm currently training for the Marathon des Sables, which is a 256-kilometer self-sufficient race to the Sahara Desert in Morocco next year. So I'm doing a lot more cardio and a lot more runs to try and build up my aerobic fitness for that. So if you're not following my Snapchat, be sure to check that out for my workouts. I'm doing a lot of hypertrophy to try and preserve the muscle that I have on top of the cardio and the runs that I'm doing. But at the minute, at the recording of this podcast, I'm up to 11-12 kilometers at the end of my workouts, and then a 20 to 25 kilometer run at the weekends, and I'm gradually building that up. So for those of you who follow my Instagram, I talk about how to go from a couch to 5K or 5K to 10K or a half marathon to a full, in terms of building up every week so that you don't effectively blow your load too quickly and you go out and do 10K off the bat that you've never done before, and then you can't move for 3 or 4 days, and then you tell yourself, you know what, I'm not going to do that. So building up gradually is key. But one of the things that I've struggled with and have only recently came to terms with how to occupy my mind when I'm on a treadmill is really finding out the things that work for you in terms of keeping your mind occupied and entertained while you're doing a long distance run. So a 10, 11 or 12 kilometer run could take me 50 to 60 minutes where I'm on a treadmill for that amount of time. I have 3 go-to things that I use, and depending on how I'm feeling that day, I will jump between the 3. So one is I'll pick an audiobook that I'm listening to. So I use the Audible app, which is the Amazon app for downloading audiobooks. For those of you who've been following me a while, you know I'm a massive fan of audiobooks. I get through at least 2 a week. I try and get through 2 or 3 books a week, 1 physical book and 2 audiobooks if I can. And the treadmill helps me a lot in terms of getting through those audiobooks and taking my mind off the run that I'm doing, particularly if it's one that I'm into. What I have found is if I'm starting a new book and I haven't got into it yet, I get very bored very, very quickly on the treadmill with it. So what I try and do with those audiobooks is I try and make sure that I'm into the one that I'm listening to. So right now I'm listening to Ray Dalio's Principles. He's a hedge fund stock investor on Wall Street. I'm very into that. He's talking a lot about life tips and his life principles. He's one of the richest men in the world, and he's talking about all the mindset tips that he used in order to run a successful business, in order to run a successful life, or what success looks like for him. And I'm able to listen to that while I'm on a treadmill because I'm really into it. But there's been times when I've been listening to books that I haven't been that into and it hasn't worked. So I'll go to number 2, which is a podcast that I'm really enjoying. So one of the things that I do is I download and save my favorite podcasts and I leave them on my iPhone and then I listen to them when I'm doing my runs. So for example, I know a lot of people consume my podcast and some of you may be on the treadmill right now and you're listening to my podcast. I save them for when I've got my cardio or my long session. So I'll go on to Gary Vaynerchuk's podcast or Tim Ferriss's podcast or Joe Rogan's podcast and I'll download a few of them. And even the ones that I listen back on my own one, I always go back and try and critique my own work to try and improve. And I will use those podcasts and I'll listen to them while I'm running. They're one of the best ones, particularly one that takes, between 30 and 50 minutes. That's normally the time you'd be on a treadmill, normally not that longer over that. And a podcast gets you through the whole thing. So that's one of the reasons why I love having my favorite podcasts on hand. The last thing then is something that I use if I'm not feeling particularly mentally strong that day. I'll go onto YouTube. And I've got a couple of, for those of you following my Snapchat, I put these up on my Snapchat and sometimes in my Instagram stories. The motivational videos on YouTube, the ones by Basquiat Picasso, Matthew M. Some of these combinations where they're just people, Eric Thomas speaking, Tony Robbins, different sports stars, Conor McGregor, Ronaldo, where they're talking about their mindset and they've got music and voices over it. I will use that as a form of mental conditioning when I'm doing long runs. For those of you who have listened to the podcast and have never seen me physically, I'm not really built to run long distances. I'm 5'8", 83, 84 kilos, pretty stocky and carry quite a bit of muscle. So I'm very much a fast twitch athlete. So running long distances has never been a natural strength. So I have to condition my mind in terms of getting myself to do the runs. And I find watching these videos and listening to the subconscious thoughts that are being fed to me in terms of how to achieve great things, never giving up, all these video titles that are on YouTube, I listen to those because they get me through my long runs and they also help condition my mental strength when I'm feeling weak or feeling tired. So for the mornings that, for those of you who follow my daily thing on Snapchat or Instagram stories, I normally get up about 4:45, particularly if I'm writing that morning, and I'll be writing and working, creating videos, and then I'll go to the gym, 6-7 hours later, and I'm normally tired, and I feel a bit mentally weak on those days. I'll plug in YouTube and I'll use those videos on those days. So they're the 3 things that I jump between to occupy my mind on my long runs. Again, find what works best for you. You may find that only one of those works for you and you do that, or you may find that you do what I do and you jump between the 3. So hopefully that helps anybody here that's wondering about what to do on their cardio or their runs or the treadmill to occupy their mind and try and make it feel like it's passing faster. Okay, next question comes in from Haley on Snapchat. How can I build a routine to get more done during the day? Okay, so I'm going to speak on this. I'll talk a little bit through my routines and basically my way that I've gone back and built my daily routine to try and get the most out of my day. Again, this comes into, I suppose, a little bit into the first question as well, with how to balance everything. Getting more done during the day is largely down to just prioritizing the most important things and making sure you do that. There's been a time in my life when I've been very, very consumed by being a busy fool, where I was always running around and I was always busy, but I was really getting nothing done. Where now I'm a lot better with prioritizing my time and making sure that I get the most important things done. There's a great book by Gary Keller called The One Thing, and he speaks about that. If we break it down, the truth is there's only normally 1 or 2 things in the day that we really need to get done. That is going to be a priority that's going to set everything up throughout the entire day. And what I find, combining that with Brian Tracy's principle that eating the frog, that if you eat a frog first thing in the morning, the whole day is going to be better from there. It sets you up in terms of building a routine. So what I do is I do a combination of that. Normally my routine will look like, and again, this is going to be finding out what works best for you. I see my whole life as an experiment, and I experiment with getting up at different times. I experiment with different sleep cycles. I experiment with different supplements, different training regimens, different systems to try and optimize my performance in my business, in my life, in my relationships, all of these things. And so a lot of it's just an experiment. So what I would advise is try out some of these things and double down on the things that work and cut the things that don't. But building a routine and having a routine with somebody that is quote unquote successful, that you look at as successful, is normally not an accident that they have the body or the business or the lifestyle that they have, because building a routine is probably one of the most important things that I've done over the last 18 months that has been allowed me to scale up my business, improve my relationships, and do all the things that I've been very fortunate to do. So the biggest advice I would offer to somebody is start looking at a routine and creating the daily habits every day that's going to support the end goal of the person that you want to become. I spoke in my book, The Fitness Mindset, about creating habits, and the University of London says it takes 66 days to form a new habit. So when you feel that you're not getting things done in the first week or the first 10 days, and it's still hard getting up earlier, or it's still hard going to the gym, or it's still hard eating clean whole foods, switching from processed foods, it takes 66 days to form a new habit. And I love the quote that the chains of habit are too lightly to be felt until they're too strong or too hard to be broken. So I would advise that understanding that we are what we repeatedly do. You are your daily habits. So what you do every single day is going to determine the person you become, and is going to determine the things that you have. And regardless of what that looks like for you, whether it's to be an incredible mother or a father, to be a grade 8 student at college, to be a top inter-county player or a top player with your club, or your top athlete in general, or just to have the body composition so you have more confidence, building a daily routine that supports that end goal is crucial. And I spoke about that in my book about creating the right habits. But you also have to know what your why is. You have to know what it is you're trying to achieve. You can't hit a target you can't see. So if you know that you want to be a top athlete, or you know you want to be a certain shape, or you know you want to have more energy through the day, or you know you want to be in an amazing relationship and be around incredible people who help you support and grow with you, you know what that end goal is. You can then reverse engineer it back, and you can make sure that you're building the habits and doing the things every single day that supports that vision of the person that you want to become. So in terms of building the routine, I'll talk you through my routine, and the reason is because it's working towards my end goal, and then it's going to be about applying that to you. So for example, right now, a couple of my goals is obviously to scale up my business and to help and serve more people. I spoke in the book that, one of the things that I always say and that I live my life by, as cheesy as it sounds, is I want the world to be better because I was here. So one of the reasons I make so many content, I make podcasts, I create videos, I do Q&As, is largely down to I want the world to be better because I was here, and try and help and serve as many people as I can while I'm here. So I know that I have to make time every single day to do my social media. That's a priority for me because it fits into the end goal. The reason I get up at 4:45 is because that's the only time of the day when I can write. I'm working now in the process of working on my second book, which is going to be largely for my GEA audience, and will be very different from the fitness mindset. But it's down to the fact the only time in the day I can write that book is first thing. So my routine now is built around getting up at 4:45. I listen to a podcast or an audiobook. I do my recovery strategy for my GEA program, where I do myofascial release and stretching. I have my smoothies. For those of you who've listened to my daily eating podcast, I talk through the food that I have there. I always have a green smoothie in the morning, and then I write for 2 hours every morning. After that, I'll take a break and I'll drive to the gym, and I'll do a workout that's some form of hypertrophy and a run, because because I'm building up for the Marathon des Sables, that 256 kilometer race to the Sahara Desert. So my end goal is to try and finish that and raise as much money for the charities that I intend to do that for. So I'm working towards that end goal. And then I come home, I start working on my emails, I do any meetings that I have with people, any Skype calls I have with my team, I'll go through that, and then I'll do all my social media. It all works towards the end goal, and building the routine comes down to knowing what you're trying to achieve and knowing where you want to be. The reason I get up in the morning at 4:45 is because I want to write the book so I can help the people that are in that GA space, and that I can get my name, my brand, and my business out there to more people so I can help and serve them. The reason I do the runs at the end of my workouts is directly down to trying to build up to the Marathon des Sables. The reason I do as much social media and the content that I do is down to building my brand and trying to help as many people as I can. The reason I do all my emails and work with my tech team is to try and scale up my business so that I can have a life that I've always dreamed of, that I have right now, but it's staying and keeping that ticking over. I always say that building the life you want is the same as building your physique. It's kind of like pushing a heavy tire up a hill. It takes a lot to get it going, and an object at rest will stay at rest until moved by an external force. An object in motion will stay in motion until moved by an external force. It's a Newtonian law of physics. When you push a massive tire up a hill, it's pretty hard to get that moving. But when you get it up there, it's pretty easy to keep it there. Building the life you want, building the routine you want, building the body you want, building the business you want is the same. It takes a lot of work in the beginning, but it's a lot easier to hold it there. And building the routines, creating the right daily habits, and doing the right things every single day that work to the end version or the end goal of the person that you want to become or the things that you want to do, that's how you make those decisions, and that's how you build that daily routine. Okay, next question comes in from Daniel Dowley on Snapchat. How can I overcome nightly binge eating? Okay, so I'm going to approach this one from a couple of angles. I've had my own issues with food in the past, and one of the reasons that I don't even call cheat meals anymore, I call them free meals, is because of my own negative connotation that I had with food. For those of you following me a while, I've spoken on other podcasts about my own issues with body dysmorphia, particularly when I was competing, when I probably had my most unhealthy relationship with the way that I looked, with food in general, because I was always striving to be bigger, to be leaner, because my bar had moved. I was trying to be the top fitness model in the world, and I was always comparing myself to those other people that were ahead of me. And again, one of my favorite quotes from Theodore Roosevelt is, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I know myself that my unhappiness massively downgraded when I was comparing myself to other people. It still does that now. Thankfully, I've tattooed that on my brain, and I don't do it anymore. Or else if I do, I catch it straight away and it doesn't affect me in a negative or put me into a negative state. But in terms of nightly binge eating, there's a couple of things to look at. The truth is, it very much depends what's causing the binge eating. For some people, they get confused because they don't know what the cause is. Binge eating in general is normally coming from an environmental cause. It can be coming from a physiological cause, from something you're consuming, eating, or supplementing with. Or it could be just be coming from a mindless eating where you're bored. So it's very important to understand, why are you getting nightly binges, or what's causing that? If, for example, you're using polyalcohols during the day, you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're using chewing gum, you're using diet drinks, you're using all these things, aspartame and sweeteners, that may be mimicking insulin in your brain and sending a message to your pancreas that's sending your body out of whack completely, and is giving you really bad cravings at nighttime, it may be something in your nutritional strategy that you need to change in order to fix that. However, it could be an environmental thing where there's a case of a person that you see every evening, or you've been stressed out all day and it's your way of unwinding, it's your way of numbing out. Catching that is going to be crucial. So if you know that you have a nightly binge eating every single night, something is happening either in your nutritional plan or in your lifestyle or in your schedule that's triggering that binge eat. So it's really important to catch that. Firstly, I'd look at your nutrition, then I'd look at your circumstance. Is it that your boss was shouting at you all day? Is it that you're tired and you just have no willpower later on in the day? There's a great book by Kelly McGonigal called The Willpower Instinct, where she talks that we run out of willpower later on in the day. One of the reasons that if someone has been shouting at you all day, or you're unhappy with your job and you've been fighting temptation at work all day and you end up binging at night, it's down to that willpower runs out. If you think of a 2-liter water bottle, when you drain that willpower bottle, there's none left and then you end up binging as a result. But what's triggering that? Is it your lifestyle? Is it the people you're around? Or is it mindless eating where you're bored in the evening? For example, I remember when I used to come home from college every Friday, again, I used to be a little bit hungover, but for me, I used to be bored every Friday evening when I came home, and it was the only time when I was off during the week because I used to work in the evenings. I had college during the day and then I'd work weekends. But Friday evening, I used to be bored. So if we were out of football season and we didn't have training, I would go home and I would literally just eat until I was sick. And it was coming from boredom. So one of the things is catching that as well. So if it's a boredom, go for a walk. Go for 20 push-ups or 20 squats and do 4 or 5 rounds of that to get your body moving. Give yourself a little bit of a serotonin or a dopamine hit. Or just do something that's not making you bored. If you're sitting in front of a TV and you know you're just munching on food because there's nothing else to do, that's mindless eating. So I would just make sure that you catch that and realize that going for a walk or listening to an audiobook or doing a little bit of exercise or doing something that stops you being bored will nearly automatically stop that. But you've got to be careful, as I said, with the 66 days that it takes to form a new habit. And that, as I said, the chains of habits are too lightly to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. So if you've created a bad habit around binge eating, it's not going to fix overnight. If you've been doing this for 2, 3, 4 months, if you've been doing this for 2, 3, 4 years, you're not going to fix it in 2 or 3 days. It's going to take longer than that. I spoke in my book that habits are like seeds in an oak tree. When you put a seed into the ground, which is a new habit, if it's still a seed, it's pretty easy to change that and dig it up. But if you have something that's a seed that's grown into a mighty oak tree over 20 years, you're not going to break it overnight. And that's what happens with people is they get disheartened that they're binge eating and they can't stop binge eating even though they've been doing it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's like the example I used in the book was if I told you I wanted to be fluent in Spanish, but I wanted to be fluent in 2 or 3 days, you'd probably tell me it's probably not possible. But if I said I want to be fluent in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, it becomes a lot more realistic. Breaking bad habits of binge eating is the same. If you've been doing it for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years, you're not going to break it in 2 or 3 days. It's building the right steps and putting the right steps in place, making sure that your nutrition is good, making sure that your environment and your schedule isn't leading you to binge eat, and then if you're bored, making sure that that's not the problem, and understanding that you're not going to fix it overnight. You may relapse, you may be perfect for 10 days and then relapse for 1. It's just getting back on track again and starting fresh. Don't get put off just because you get put back a step. You know, every time you fail is just a way of seeing it of 1 step forward to where to move to next time. If you got 11 days where you didn't binge and you binged on the 12th, then try and make it 12 days next time. And you keep doing that and you keep pushing it until you form the new habits and you form the new lifestyle and you're not binging anymore. But it's very, very important to understand what's causing it and then fixing that first. Okay, so that's everything from today's episode. So a massive thank you for everyone sending in the questions. For more information about me or my Top 50 program, my GEA Lean Body program, or my GEA Youth program, head over to my website, www.briankeenfitness.com. My Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is all Brian Keane Fitness. My best-selling book, The Fitness Mindset, is now on Amazon. My Snapchat, BrianK019. And thanks to Colma Voxana, who puts together all my episodes. Thanks again. Catch you soon.